We are kicking off today with AEW Dynamite, as the Devil once again made an appearance on this week's show after the reigning world champion MJF had some words to say. During Dynamite, MJF, with Adam Cole in the ring, said that he would do all he could to unmask whoever the Devil is, and when he does, he'll unleash hell on whoever is behind the mask. Just then, the lights cut out and the Devil appeared on the Titantron and laughed at MJF's threat before disappearing, in the first peep we've heard from the mysterious individual. Coincidentally, Samoa Joe's theme song played once the lights came on, and the Samoan submission machine would storm to the ring to talk about his deal with MJF made ahead of Full Gear. In another interesting move, Adam Cole was insistent that MJF should honor his deal to give Joe a world title match, and let's not forget that MJF wanted no part of Joe at first. MJF only teamed with Joe because all the alternatives, such as those in the Acclaimed, were attacked by the Devil, and isn't it convenient that the Devil effectively set the stage for Joe getting a world title match? We could be getting close to finding out who the man behind the mask is, and some are suspecting that Adam Cole is responsible in what would be a shocking betrayal of his best friend. Others have predicted Jack Perry in what would be a noteworthy way to bring him back to TV, though it would probably be the least exciting outcome given the ongoing speculation about Cole. Whatever the case may be, this was a multi-layered segment that accomplished a few things and got both MJF and Cole on screen despite their respective injuries. The MJF-Cole Dynamite appears to have cooled off compared to what it was a few months back, but everyone in this segment played their role well on Dynamite. Well, many predict that Adam Cole could be the one underneath the Devil's mask. Whether that's the case or not, don't expect the former NXT champion to get physical anytime soon. During Dynamite, Cole made it clear that he has not received medical clearance to compete, despite being willing to defend MJF's world title against Jay White at Full Gear. Cole added that he isn't even allowed to put weight on his injured ankle, hence why he was using crutches on the show, and there's no word on when he'll be able to wrestle again. Cole's segment did result in MJF granting Samoa Joe his promised world title match, which will take place at World's End next month, which will happen in MJF's home state of New York. While Cole can't compete, that doesn't mean he can't be the Devil, who has remained relatively stoic in his appearances, so we'll have to see what Cole does next as we get closer to World's End. At Full Gear, the Young Bucks lost their AEW World Tag Team Championship opportunity to the Golden Jets, and were clearly unhappy about their defeat to Kenny Omega and Chris Jericho. Post-match, the pair were enraged and destroyed part of the ringside area, and it was stated by Brandon Cutler that the pair are taking a break from AEW for the time being. Well, it turns out their break isn't just for show, as in an update on Twitter, Cutler made it clear that the Bucks were not at last night's edition of AEW Dynamite. It's believed that this loss will be the catalyst for a heel turn for Matt and Nick Jackson, with some speculating as to whether they may align themselves with Don Callis and turn on Kenny Omega. Whether that happens or not remains to be seen, but for the time being, don't expect the Bucks on AEW programming just yet after their setback at Full Gear. On the heels of his Texas Deathmatch win at Full Gear, Swerve Strickland became the first man to win points in the Continental Classic with a victory in the round-robin tournament over Jay Lethal. The pop for Strickland was enormous, and the crowd kept that energy with Swerve's house chants, and despite his heelness, Swerve is about to be one of AEW's most organic babyfaces. It should be no surprise that Lethal and Strickland had a great match that focused on each man exploiting the other's injury before Strickland got the win with a double stomp for the pinfall. Kicking off Dynamite with the most buzzworthy star from Full Gear was the right call, and Strickland did not disappoint, with his pop making the opening match and start to the show feel even bigger. It was at Full Gear that Strickland and Hangman Adam Page competed in one of the most violent matches we've ever seen from the company, and that's saying something. Their Texas Deathmatch saw some pretty brutal spots, but perhaps none was more visceral than when Page, after busting Strickland open, drank some of his opponent's blood before spitting it out. The spot has divided fans as to whether it went too far or not, but according to Fightful Select, AEW's producer for the match approved the spot in question, including Page spitting the blood in the air. The backstage reaction within AEW was overwhelmingly positive, as people were thrilled with how the match was executed and received, including with the controversial spot in question. Strickland's victory over the former AEW World Champion is perhaps his most high-profile AEW win to date, with many expecting big things from him, even after having his blood drank by the Cowboy. More from AEW now, as it was some time back that a promo aired teasing the return of Danhausen, and after a lengthy wait, fans have finally had the chance to see him back on TV. During this week's Dynamite, a 6-man tag pitting Orange Cassidy, Hook, and Katsuyori Shibata against Daddy Magic, Cool Hand Ange, and Jake Hager, and Danhausen made his surprise return. Prior to the match, Cassidy teased a Thanksgiving surprise, which turned out to be Danhausen, who earned a huge ovation from the crowd. AEW had previously advertised the return of the very nice, very evil wrestler for a previous show, but that didn't happen, leading to speculation as to why his return was being delayed. It was even rumored at one time that he had heat in AEW for selling bootleg merchandise, which turned out to not be the case at all, and Danhausen would say that this story was the idea of one singular dumb person on Twitter. The only heat Danhausen has had was from the red-hot reaction he received at this week's Dynamite, as the crowd were excited to see the bizarre wrestler back on TV. As for the match, the Faces got the win in a match that didn't further any storylines, with a simultaneous Red Rum and Sleeper from Hook and Shibata getting the win. The match was fine, but the only notable highlight was Danhausen, who would deliver a curse to Hager to a big pop from the Chicago faithful. On the heels of a Full Gear loss to Adam Copeland, Sting, and Darby Allin, TNT champion Christian Cage led Nick Wayne and Luchasaurus to the ring with the intent of rechristening them. Cage rebranded Luchasaurus as Killswitch, while Wayne is now the Prodigy, but not before humiliating the former in a way that will likely only continue to drum up tension and dissension. Shayna Wayne, Nick's mother, interrupted the proceedings, but ended up catching an errant blow from Killswitch before a concerto was teased that thankfully did not happen. Adam Copeland made the save and delivered 2 spears and a concerto of his own to the Prodigy, all while commentary tried to save face for Copeland brutalizing the young Nick in front of his mom. This was an interesting segment, and Cage is a great heel, but did Luchasaurus need to be rebranded into something more genetic, while Wayne's new name is something he already had been referred to as? We also have to wonder how Copeland didn't realize that Shayna Wayne was in the ring as he attacked her son, when he literally slid past her to wipe the Prodigy out with the first spear. This segment continued this feud, but did so in a clunky fashion, and we hope this culminated with a Copeland vs. Cage match at World's End next month. When Cody Rhodes returned to WWE last year, he was thrust into a feud with Seth Rollins and defeated the Architect 3 times at premium live events. While both men are currently faces, their heated history is often acknowledged when they're on TV together, but the pair recently buried the hatchet off-screen. After this week's Raw, Rollins, Cody, Sami Zayn, and Jey Uso were in the ring, and during a brief moment, Seth and Cody smirked at each other and were clearly having a good time. This wholesome interaction was brief but hasn't gone unnoticed, as when a clip was shared on Twitter, fans were pleased to see that the two are actually friends. One fan said that they're happy that their beef is over, while another suspected that their hatred for each other was only on screen, and another simply said, they lied. Rhodes and Rollins ultimately want to make WWE the best it can be, and both have become top stars in their efforts, and while they may not be the best of friends, there's little tension between the two. Earlier this week, we reported on Monday Night Raw, which will soon have a new theme song 2 years after the introduction of the current theme. Well, it turns out it won't just be a new theme for Raw, as according to Fightful Select, match graphics will also have their own unique pieces of music. Several pieces of music have been created to be used throughout the show, with the names of these tracks including Survival, Came to Win It, and Eyes of a Warrior. As for the new Raw opening track, that is titled Born to Be, and the publishers of said tracks are listed as members of Def Rebel and Stephanie Music Publishing, Inc. Def Rebel has produced several WWE themes over the years, while Stephanie Music Publishing is WWE's official publishing company, and we'll have to see when these new themes are used. In 2016, Cody Rhodes chose to step away from WWE after growing tired of the Stardust character and believing he could make a bigger name for himself outside the promotion. Rhodes did just that and became a top star prior to his return to WWE in 2022, but that's not exactly how things went, at least according to Matt Cardona. Like Rhodes, Cardona has gone on to do big things outside of WWE, and taking to Twitter recently, the former US champion claimed that he made Cody quit WWE. We're not sure what kind of response this post got, but we do know that Cardona would delete the post shortly after, but not before wrestling fans screenshotted the tweet in question. It should be stated that this post was very tongue-in-cheek and that Cody and Cardona are good friends, with Matt often stating that Cody and Brandi introduced him to his current wife, Chelsea Green. Cody and Matt competed in WWE for years and are former NWA World's Heavyweight Champions, and perhaps we'll one day see Cody feud with the man who allegedly made him quit WWE. It was in 2021 that Eva Marie returned to WWE after a 4-year absence, but the former Total Divas star would end up getting released by November of that year. Since then, Marie has teased going back to WWE, and while that hasn't happened yet, a recent interaction with one of WWE's broadcast partners has had fans talking. On Twitter, a fan tagged the USA Network and asked about WWE bringing back Eva, and the network said that if that's what WWE and Marie want, they're sure it'd be entertaining. This response caught the attention of Eva Marie herself, who responded with a few emojis making clear that she's open to the idea of a return. During her 2021 run, Eva Marie feuded with Alexa Bliss and brought current tag team champion Piper Niven to the main roster, and is a third return to WWE a possibility? Only time will tell. This Saturday, WWE will host its annual Survivor Series premium live event from the All-State Arena with a stacked show announced for Chicago, Illinois. The show will see 2 War Games matches, as well as multiple title matches, and WWE is also hoping to break a record with their upcoming show. According to WrestleTix, there are only 61 tickets left for Survivor Series, with 17,157 tickets having been distributed for this weekend's event. WWE is hoping to break their all-time attendance record for the All-State Arena, which was reached at WrestleMania 22 when 17,155 fans filled the arena in April 2006. When tickets first went on sale for Survivor Series, demand was immediately strong, showing that fans are enjoying what they're seeing, and we'll see if WWE makes history this Saturday. Ever since he signed a lucrative contract with WWE last year, Roman Reigns has competed far less for the promotion and has had just 11 matches for the company in 2023. This relaxed schedule has drawn the ire of countless fans and was part of the reason behind the creation of Raw's World Heavyweight Championship, but not everyone is against the Tribal Chief. Speaking with Sports Illustrated, Gunther praised the reigning undisputed WWE Universal Champion, who he believes has earned a relaxed schedule. He added, "I think he's doing an excellent job. He's one of the best we have." It's interesting that Gunther of all people is saying this, as like Reigns, he too is in the midst of a record-breaking title run, but unlike Roman, Gunther is competing on TV and at live events. Reigns isn't expected to wrestle for the rest of this year, and his next match will likely be at next year's Royal Rumble, but do you agree with Gunther? Let us know in the comments below. Back to Dynamite, and in another Continental Classic Gold League match, Rush faced Jay White, and after the setback of losing at Full Gear, White needed the 3 points he earned with a pinfall victory. White got the win with a well-timed and undetected low blow in a good competitive match between 2 men who put over the exhaustion of their disappointing nights at Full Gear. The match put over White as a resourceful heel that will still find a way to cheat and win, even if he cannot rely on outside interference from his Bullet Club Gold cronies. For White, it was a great bounce back after losing to MJF at Full Gear, but for Rush, it was another disappointing defeat, despite another performance solidifying him as a premier wrestler in AEW. Prior to a women's triple threat, Toni Storm made her championship acceptance speech before her exit was cut off by the arrival of Sky Blue. Blue's interaction with Storm teased that she'll be next to challenge for the AEW Women's World title, and to see where Blue is now compared to a year ago is like night and day. It's clear that Blue will be a world champion sooner rather than later, especially since she beat Ruby Soho and Anna Jay in the triple threat, and will likely be in line for a title opportunity soon enough. In another classic Gold League match, Jon Moxley defeated Mark Briscoe to earn 3 points, but with so many segments already, the main event felt more rushed than it should have. Nevertheless, both men gave a grueling performance, with Briscoe bleeding and absorbing everything thrown at him before succumbing to Moxley's stomp and a second Death Rider. Moxley winning felt like a foregone conclusion, so that was no surprise, but it's time to start doing something of meaning with Briscoe, because these high-profile losses are definitely adding up. Right now, AEW has multiple wrestlers on their injured list, and one star who has been out of action for quite some time is Private Party's Mark Quinn. Quinn hasn't competed since the November 30th, 2022 edition of AEW Rampage, where he and Isaiah Cassidy lost a tag team match and fans could soon be seeing his long-awaited return. Fightful Select reports that things are looking up for Quen, who was backstage at an AEW event recently and is close to making his comeback. The report states, "The last time we saw Mark Quen of Private Party was last November in a loss to Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal. Unfortunately, he's been out of action for nearly a full year, which led Isaiah Cassidy to team with the likes of the Hardys and Ethan Page. Even then, Cassidy has only worked a couple of dozen matches during that period himself. We're told Cassidy was backstage at a recent AEW show, and AEW is hopeful that he could return sooner rather than later. Quen sustained a shoulder injury and had been in a sling for quite some time. It's worth noting that even if cleared, we aren't sure if any creative plans are in order. There have been situations like Thunder Rosa where talent have been ready and we're just awaiting creative." Without Quen by his side, Isaiah Cassidy has continued to align with Matt Hardy, but is morphed into a more moaning version of himself and goes by Brother Zay. We'll have to see if that changes once Quen is back in the ring, and hopefully it won't be long before the Private Party member is back in action after his lengthy hiatus. It was in May of this year that Karen Jarrett made her debut for AEW, years after fans last saw her alongside her husband Jeff when they were in TNA. During her time with TNA, Karen received a ton of heat as her angle acknowledged her previous marriage to Kurt Angle, but an unlikely source helped her end up in AEW. On the AEW Unrestricted podcast, Karen explained that it was Dax Harwood who pushed AEW to sign her, and recognized that she'd get a reaction from the AEW crowd. Karen added that the process of her arrival was very quick, as within 36 hours of being told by AEW that she was needed, she was cutting a heel promo in front of the fans. Karen has had just one match with AEW, which was a 6-person tag match in June, and for fans who are enjoying getting to boo her each week, they have Dax Harwood to thank for her arrival. Following the passing of Eddie Guerrero in 2005, WWE would introduce its wellness policy, and in 2007, the decision was made that talent would be publicly named if they failed testing. While we don't see as many wellness policy violations anymore in WWE, we've almost never heard of talent testing positive for drugs in AEW, but there is a worrying reason for that. According to the Wrestling Observer's Dave Meltzer, AEW has a similar policy to WWE, but does not conduct drug testing at the moment, and it's unclear why this is the case. In the past, Tony Khan acted quickly to suspend Jeff Hardy following his DUI arrest, though it's worth pointing out that a DUI arrest is very different from a wrestler taking performance-enhancing drugs. Perhaps Tony Khan has an immense amount of faith in his roster to not take performance-enhancing drugs, and just because a policy is in place doesn't mean AEW are working to catch anyone using steroids. Each year, Pro Wrestling Illustrated shares its lists of the best male singles talent, female singles talent, and tag teams in the world, which are always a hot topic of discussion among fans. This week, PWI shared the top 10 tag teams as part of this year's 100 tag teams list, and FTR proved that their nickname as Top Guys is accurate by claiming the top spot. FTR were ranked number 1, while AEW's Aussie Open came second, and former undisputed WWE Tag Team Champions Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn took 3rd place. Further down the list, the Acclaimed were ranked 7th, while the Judgment Day, represented by Finn Balor, Dominic Mysterio, and Damian Priest, took 8th, and WWE's Damage Control took 9th place. To find out the entire ranking, you'll have to copy the latest issue of PWI, and do you think that FTR deserves the top spot, or do you think another tag team should be ranked number 1? And we're ending today with Nikki Bella, who for years was one of WWE's top women, but feels there was a definite glass ceiling for every woman, even herself. Speaking with WESH's Bilal Jabber, Nikki suggested that WWE made sure that women could only go so far to avoid overshadowing the men. She said, "I wish we had the opportunity of what women have now. I wish we could have the Hell in a Cell matches. It wasn't us that didn't want that, and the company just threw that on us because it makes the company look better. It's just blame the women that it was them why we didn't have it. They didn't want women to have that then. They didn't want women to overshadow the men." Nikki and her sister left WWE earlier this year, and it remains unclear if they'll wrestle again. But if they do, they'll hopefully not be held back like she feels she was in WWE.